A spotless napkin, a silent clue. What secret does it hide? Welcome to Mystery Parlor. I am your host, Axon. Tell me where you're tuning in from. I love seeing this community grow. Let's uncover the truth. At 10:45 on a Tuesday, when Wolfe was still upstairs with his plants and Fritz was lecturing a stockpot about the dignity of veal bones, the doorbell rang the way a person rings when they want something important and fast. I was at my desk, doing penance over the monthly bills and balancing them against Wolfe's ideas of what the world ought to pay for truffles. I let the bell ring again, because a man should get what he deserves. And then I went. The woman on the stoop was mid-30s, compact the way a loaded suitcase is compact, and clutching a heavy plastic sleeve like it contained either a legal document or a live eel. She introduced herself in a rush. Claudia Needham, Director of Events at the Hawthorne Foundation. She had a taxi lip on her lower lip where she'd been chewing it for a block and a half. "I need Mr. Wolfe," she said. "Now." "You and several burros," I told her. "He's busy flirting with orchids." "I'm Archie Goodwin. Come in and practice patience, which in this house is a sacred art," she came in. The plastic sleeve got the kind of private treatment from her hands that told me it was the centerpiece. I took her to the office and set her in the red leather chair that has seen more nervous twisting than a ballroom floor. She eyed Wolfe's empty chair like it was a locked vault. "What is it you need Mr. Wolfe for?" I asked, reparking myself at my desk. She waited exactly one breath. "A scandal, unless it's a lie. But it was engineered to look like a mistake. It's a trick meant to damage my foundation and to damage someone else more." "You brought a trick in a bag." I eyed the plastic. "A napkin," she said. "And yes, I hear how that sounds. I hear lots of things that sound like trouble." "From lunch?" "From last night," she said. "A dinner we hosted at Rusterman's." That put a kink in my spinal cord. Rusterman's and Wolfe have a relationship that isn't public knowledge to people in strapless gowns and donor lists. I kept my eyebrows down. She slid the sleeve onto my desk, careful enough to qualify for surgery. Inside was a linen dinner napkin, white, starched, folded once. If it looked any cleaner, it would have required sunglasses. The corner had a tiny stitched emblem, a loop and a dot that didn't spell anything I knew but could have been a laundry mark's idea of art. "It's supposed to be stained," she said. "With?" "Burgundy," Claudia said. Madame Angeline Thibault knocked her glass. The tablecloth wore it in a ring the size of a halo, and everyone at the table did the little chorus they do, "Oh no, and don't worry," while the waiter dabbed. This is the napkin he used. It should be stained, but it's not, and this is important because Madame Thibault is claiming her diamond brooch disappeared in the fuss, and that my staff and Rusterman's are responsible. She is the kind of donor who calls reporters by their first names. She sent this napkin to our office this morning as a reminder of our carelessness, Claudia said, except it's spotless. It's wrong. In terms of emergencies, we place spotless napkins below house fires and above moths in the wardrobe. Still, I did not throw it back at her. She wasn't finished. "Someone," she said, gripping the chair arms, "wants the foundation to bleed. They will make it look like incompetence, then theft, and they want Rusterman's to take the public hit. If that happens, our gala, our largest event, collapses. My reputation collapses. Madame Thibault is not merely aggrieved, she is directing the outrage, and the napkin is part of the theater. The stain should be there, and it isn't." "Why not call a laundryman and a lawyer?" I suggested. "We did," she said. "The laundryman signed a song about impeccable starch. The lawyer squinted and said the napkin proves nothing. He's half right. It proves nothing obvious. But it proves to me that last night's scene was staged." At 11 o'clock, the elevator let Wolfe off like a monarch disembarking. He came in, breathing like air owed him interest, crossed to his chair, and sat. His eyes went to the plastic sleeve the way a cat's eyes go to a bird that's pretending to be a leaf. "Good morning," he told Claudia. "Archie will be forgiven for not refusing you, since refusal of urgency is itself a provocation." "Your name?" She did the business. Wolfe gave her an eyelid for each clause. When she got to napkin, he twitched a finger at me. I slid the plastic over. He didn't touch it, naturally. He looked at the linen as if it had raised its hand in class. "A napkin," he said. "Of course." "Miss Needham, explain again." With care, she did. Shorter. Wolfe asked 3 questions, each shaped to cut the fat. Did anyone else handle the napkin? Had any other item been substituted, and whether Madame Thibault had made an announcement or a scene? The answers were no, no, and yes. The last with embroidery. Wolfe's fingers drummed once on the arm of his chair and stopped, like a metronome deciding it had nothing left to teach. "You have come to me because you expect me to demonstrate that the absence of a stain is itself a stain," he said. "You suspect contrivance." "I do," she said, "and I suspect motive. But I can't be the one to say it." "Motive," Wolfe repeated, making it taste like time. "Very well." He looked at me, not at her. "Archie, a retainer." I kept my face neutral and fetched a pad. Claudia didn't blink about the fee. That told me what her fear cost. "You will tell me," she said, "why you care about a napkin." "No," Wolfe said gently. "Not yet." He signed her receipt. The napkin stayed on my desk, pristine, waiting to be what it wasn't. Wolfe closed his eyes halfway and opened them again. Not a yawn. "Miss Needham," he murmured, "I will accept. I will also insist that our interactions be confined to accuracy. I detest theater unless I'm staging it. Archie will begin this afternoon." He lifted a finger toward the plastic. "Leave that abomination." He shut his eyes completely. "Fritz." Fritz's head appeared. "Yes, sir?" "Bring beer," Wolfe said, "and a saucer." Fritz brought the beer on a tray with a glass and a saucer as if we were entering a treaty. Wolfe watched the pour the way a judge watches a clerk, only to be sure it's done, not because he needs the entertainment. When the glass had its proper color and the bottle was settled on the saucer, he took a sip and returned to the napkin. "You will not object, Miss Needham," he said, "if I decline to touch it." "Archie." I slid the sleeve back to the center blotter and angled the lamp. Claudia leaned forward as if light would confess what people wouldn't. "You say the waiter dabbed," Wolfe said. "Names." The captain was Felix Corter. The waiter at our table was Lino Alvarez. The sommelier was a Frenchman, Etienne. I didn't get his last name. "Who else at your table?" "Madame Thibault, her husband, our board treasurer Owen Tormé, Dr. Dahlia Crone, and a tech donor named Trent Caswell. 2 seats rotated for press and a city liaison. Tamsin Rourke from the Tribune and Councilwoman Merriwell's aide, a young man who sweated profusely. "You observed the spill?" he asked. "I saw the glass go." I was on my feet immediately. The tablecloth took the worst of it, a ring. The waiter dabbed at Madame Thibault's lap and the edge of the table. She fussed with her clutch. We all told her it was fine. She made it not fine. Wolfe's eyes moved, not to the napkin, but to the edge of the plastic, where the folds sat like a razor. "This was laundered and starched after," he said, "and folded by a laundry. Rustermans does not send guests home with enshrined linen." Claudia nodded. "I know. That's why I brought it. She sent it to our office at 9 with a note about standards. The courier said it came from a private service, not a store. Look." She pointed at the tiny emblem. "The laundryman we used didn't recognize this mark." "Archie," Wolfe said, "if you please." I lifted the fold without opening it, enough to show the crease. He didn't have to say the rest. A used napkin doesn't look like a pressed envelope. The thing shone with virtue. "So," Wolfe said to Claudia. Either a used napkin was exchanged for a clean one, or the appearance of using a napkin was a contrivance, and this is Exhibit A to an accusation of shabby service. What of the brooch? It vanished, sometime during dessert. A diamond cluster in an Art Deco setting. She wore it at the start. I remember because it kept catching the chandelier. After the spill, she went to the powder room. 20 minutes later, she told Felix it was gone. There was an uproar in small voices. Was the police notified? She said she would call her private security consultant and her insurer. She made a speech about discretion. No police showed fiai. He set the beer down. Who suggested Rustermans was negligent? She did. And she CC'd 2 reporters, our board, and an events blog before breakfast. Claudia's hands flattened. If this becomes a narrative, our gala dies. If Rustermans is unsafe, we lose our venue and the donor class goes elsewhere. Someone wants that who? Wolfe asked. Her gaze flicked to me and back. She was measuring whether this room liked candor. There's been pressure to move the gala to the Eglantine, she said. Their sales director has been courting our board treasurer. There would be a commission, and Madame Thibault hates that Rustermans doesn't let her smoke between courses. But that's petty. The real motive, if I guess, is leverage. Torme's been angling to outsource our events to a firm run by his sister-in-law. If Rustermans is compromised, it's an excuse. To preserve your employment, you have come to me, Wolfe said, and perhaps out of moral nausea. Both. And because I don't believe a brooch walked out of Rustermans without help. Before Wolfe could reply, the bell rang again, 3 taps that would have gotten a doorman demoted in my book. I went. The man on the step had the build of a kiln and the color of a black coffee. He introduced himself as Owen Torme, board treasurer, and brushed past me like a subpoena. In the office, he halted because people do, even the big ones. Wolfe doesn't rise, but the room does. Torme's eyes found the plastic sleeve and did a little brighten. He offered Claudia a nod that wasn't affectionate, then turned the nod into a frown for me. Mr. Wolfe, he said, I'm here to collect our property. Counsel advises poorly, Wolfe said pleasantly. You may sit. I'll stand. We don't require the services of a private investigator. You are misinformed, Wolfe said. Miss Needham has engaged me. The napkin is in my custody until I release it. Should that distress your counsel, he may write me a letter and enclose a check Torme's jaw registered where the line was. He didn't cross. This is very simple. A donor's brooch is missing. The venue is responsible. We are evaluating a venue change. What we don't need is theatrics, Wolfe sighed. Mr. Torme, there is already theatre, and you are posturing on its stage. Sit or go. I abhor men hovering like fruit flies. He sat, which improved the air. I took a chair on a slant so I could watch both of them watch each other. Where were you seated? Wolfe asked. At the head table. Angeline was to my left, Torme said. She spilled her wine. The staff was inattentive. It was disgraceful. Do you often appraise Grace? I asked. Or just when there's a commission attached? He swung his head to me, then to Claudia. You told him that. I told him we're being played, Claudia said. If you're not part of that, Owen, say so. What I am, he said tightly, is concerned with fiduciary stewardship. We can't afford reputational risk. Indeed, Wolfe murmured. Which is why you should prefer the truth to a drama that exposes you. Archie, you will go to Rustermans. Speak to Mr. Courter, Mr. Alvarez, and the sommelier. Obtain the seating diagram, the service notes, and the linen vendor. Secure the tablecloth if it has not been cleaned, insist politely. Miss Needham, you will email the guest list with contact information. Mr. Torme, you will write me the name of your counsel and the Eglantine liaison. and you will not, under any circumstance, instruct anyone to alter, launder, or discard any item related to last night." Torme's mouth opened to object and shut again, as if he'd discovered the taste of the word subpoena. "I can't order Rustermans," he said. "No," Wolfe agreed. "I can persuade them. In your own interest, restrain your zeal." He held out a hand. I gave him a pad and a pen. He wrote stabbing consonants. I took the sheet and folded it once. "Archie," Wolfe said, "the napkin goes in the safe." He sipped his beer and closed his eyes halfway. "Miss Needham, your instinct is correct. The absence of a stain is emphatic. The brooch, if stolen, was stolen by someone who required a scene. Manufactured scenes are costly in two senses. They degrade truth, and they require rehearsal. I will find the stagehand." Claudia let out a breath I didn't know she was holding. Torme stood. "This is irregular," he said. "Life is," I told him. "We manage." He glowered a goodbye that wasn't and left without another try for the sleeve. Claudia looked to Wolfe. "Do you want me at Rusterman's?" "No. You will go to your office and listen. Anyone who calls you with a suggestion, venue changes, council introductions, access to press. Send the name to Archie. Resist any request to retrieve this napkin." He opened his eyes fully. "That napkin will be bait when I wish it to be." "For now, it is a reminder. To whom?" she asked. "To me," he said, "that people will polish a lie before they will live with a smudge." I took the plastic sleeve to the safe and logged it the way we log things that can make a man's week or ruin it. At 1:30, I had my hat, my notebook, and an appetite I didn't intend to feed at Rusterman's. Wolfe reminded me to be civil and not to settle for it. Then I went out to see what a clean napkin had to say to a soiled day. Rusterman's at 2 in the afternoon wears its linen like armor. The room was set for dinner, silver asleep, staff moving with the hush of men who don't want a scuff reputation. Felix Courter met me at the door with a face that could have been carved by a maître de guilde. We know each other. He took me to his office, closed the door, and kept his hands flat. "You were at the table," I said. "I was," he said. Madame Thibault tipped a glass. We dabbed. She complained, "With this?" I showed him a phone snap of the emblem on our pristine exhibit. He didn't touch the screen. "Not ours." Our napkins carry the Rusterman wreath stitched inside the hem. Our laundry, Drouet linen, adds a green tack stitch at the corner. That is neither sew a swap. "Where's the tablecloth?" His mouth tightened. I set it aside myself, bagged this morning, 10 o'clock. A man arrived, a Jory Vale, presenting a letter on Madame's insurer's letterhead authorizing chain of custody removal for analysis. He was polite, recorded serials, had me sign a receipt. He wore gloves. I called Mr. Brenner, the GM, who instructed compliance to avoid escalation. "Do you have a copy of the receipt?" Felix opened a drawer and handed it over. Vale's name, a number, the words particulate and fiber analysis. In the margin, a note in Felix's hand. CC'd to O. Torme. I looked at him. "They were on the call," Felix said. "Mr. Torme and Madame, fine. I'll want the seating diagram, service notes, and your linen vendor contact." He had them ready, which is why Rusterman's is Rusterman's. I pocketed them and asked for Lino Alvarez. Lino came in with a nervous energy that wasn't espresso. Early 30s, clean whites, hands that don't shake until someone accuses them of theft. "Tell it," I said. "I poured," he said. She gestured. The base clipped the plate. It wasn't much. I blotted first with a bar towel I carry, then Mr. Courter signaled, and I brought a fresh napkin from our station. I dabbed the lap lightly. She swatted, took it, and said, "I'll manage." I didn't see it again. The ring on the cloth? Round. Splatty. "Round," he said. like a saucer had been there and the wine traced it. But I didn't put a saucer. Anyone else touched the linen? Madame adjusted it with her left hand while fussing in her clutch. I went for soda water. When I came back, she was standing, saying the brooch was gone. Did she ever have the napkin you brought in her lap before the spill? No. We had just reset after the amuse. She hadn't unfolded anything that tidied a corner I wanted untidy. Etienne, the sommelier, arrived next, a Frenchman by birth and by choice. You decanted the Burgundy? I asked. He lifted a shoulder. A Volnay village, 2010. I did not decant. The ring, too perfect. If one knocks, it splashes. It runs with the table's slope. This ring sat. Who was at the bar before dinner? Your mister. Torme met a woman I know from the Eglantine. Sales director. Blonde hair. Sharp suit. 15 minutes. I sent them water. He tipped on the water with a 20 and did not look pleased. I got the Drouet contact in the diagram and stood. Felix touched the receipt. Mr. Goodwin, we did not fail. We were used, you and half the city most nights, I said. This time I get to be the broom. On the sidewalk I called Wolfe. He let me report without interrupting, which is how you know he's paying attention. They took the tablecloth, I finished. Madame's consultant. The napkin isn't theirs. Lino says the ring looked staged. Torme met Eglantine in the bar. Wolfe made a small sound that, from him, counts as profanity. We are being managed. Go to Drouet. Confirm their marks. Ask for last night's outbound manifest and hold. Then call Saul. Give him Jory Vale and Madame. Not yet. Let Mr. Vale lead. I headed for Drouet. Because when someone polishes a lie, the lint they leave behind belongs to laundry. Drouet sits on a block that smells like steam and starch. Inside, carts of linen moved like obedient icebergs. The plant manager, a square woman in a navy smock named Lenore Drouet, heard me out and didn't waste any consolations. Our marks, she said, laying a sample napkin on a stainless table, are the Rusterman wreath, inside hem, and a green tack stitch at one corner. We sew it ourselves. She showed me the stitch, tiny, unapologetic. Nothing leaves here pressed like a wedding announcement. Folded, yes. Stiff as a board, no. Restaurants soften them on sight. I showed her a shot of our napkin's emblem. She snorted, not ours. That's Lamb and Bright Textile. They supply hotels in the Eglantine. Midtown. The loop is an L and the dot their inventory tag, so a Lamb and Bright napkin sat at a Rusterman's table. Unless someone brought it in their purse, she said. We didn't short Rusterman's. Here she plucked a clipboard. Outbound manifest yesterday. 10 stations replenished, counts verified. This morning's pickup is in hold as you requested. We flagged the event linens. None are washed. Anyone ask you about your marks today? She looked toward her office. A woman called at 9:15. Clipped voice. Asked how to tell our work from a competitor's boutique finish. Didn't give a name. Wanted to know if we use a corner emblem. We don't. I told her. Her mouth went thin. I don't like games. Join the club. I took the manifest and her card, thanked her for being the sort of person who keeps the city from crumbling into slop, and stepped outside to call Wolfe. He took the report in a rhythm that meant the grey cells were clicking. Lamb and Bright, he said, and Miss Drouet's caller inquired before Miss Needham arrived here. Someone is checking whether their forgery will pass casual scrutiny. It will not. Etienne spotted Torme with the Eglantine sales director, I said. Okay if I ask you for the name Torme wrote? Brenna Lafferty, Wolfe said. Do not go to her yet. Call Saul. I did. Saul answered with the voice of a man who already knows he's going to ruin someone's afternoon. I gave him Jory Vale, the insurer, letter, and the tablecloth. On it, he said. Any alias? Wouldn't surprise me. I cut north to Midtown and dialed the number on Vale's letterhead en route. A pleasant machine promised a call back from Delvaux Indemnity. No operator. No directory. I left my name and hung up, feeling like I'd just tossed a note down a well. Saul rang back before I hit 47th. No PI license in the state for Jory Vale, he said. There is a man using that name renting a desk at a co-work on 56th. Also, there's a corporate security consultant who looks like him in trade photos. Different name, Geordie Vales. Worked 3 years ago for a firm that did donor screening for Madame Thibault. His current address is on East 68th. He left 20 minutes ago carrying a garment bag. He's walking south. See where he dumps the cloth, I said. I already am. Lamb and Bright had a showroom that sold the fantasy that laundry is glamorous. A front clerk with expensive eyebrows told me their hotel clients included the eglantine and produced a sample napkin with the loop and dot mark. It matched our exhibit like a twin who went to a better school. Do you supply Rustermans? I asked. No, she said, faintly offended. They're very loyal to their vendors. So am I, when they keep my shirts from shrinking, I said, and left. On the sidewalk, Saul again. Vale met a woman in a grey coupe on 55th, Brenna Lafferty, if her LinkedIn selfie is honest. He handed her the garment bag. They drove west. Do not interrupt them, Wolfe said when I relayed. Let them perform. Return here. Bring Miss Needham at 6, and find an excuse to invite Mr. Tormey to join them. An excuse? Tell him we will advise him how to avoid reputational risk. It isn't even a lie I turned downtown. If someone wants to polish a lie in my vicinity, I prefer to be present when it cracks. I called Claudia from the cab and told her 6. She said she'd be here if she had to crawl, and then forwarded a bored email chain full of panic and italics. There was an emergency call at 4 to discuss venue integrity and a prudent pivot to eglantine. Tormey was the loudest drum. Madame was CC'd, adding a note about assurances and stewardship, which is how rich people spell pressure. Tormey answered on the second ring. I told him Mr. Wolfe would be advising at 6 on minimizing reputational risk with respect to the incident and the narrative. If he preferred to guess, I wouldn't stop him, but guessing has a price. You're not in a position to dictate, he said. I'm not dictating. I'm offering a seat and a solution. If you choose air and hope, that's on you. Silence, then resentment. 6, he said. 15 minutes, no more. Sure, I said, and hung up before the echo could complain. Saul checked in. Your man Vale took the bag through the eglantine side dock. Lafferty keyed him in. 10 minutes later, he left without it. Now he's at the address on the letterhead and. A mailbox store. The suite number is a row of rental boxes. The corporate office is 3 shelves of greeting cards. Wolfe made a noise that suggested language he doesn't use in front of Fritz. They will present analysis from a contrivance. The cloth will be doctored to corroborate a tale. Let them. We have the napkin. It contradicts the tale more eloquently than you. I got back to the brownstone at 3:45. Fritz handed me coffee because he believes hydration prevents homicide. At 4:02 the bell rang and I got a man in a courier cap holding an envelope with Delvaux Indemnity stamped like a passport. He had the air of someone who rehearsed, saying chain of custody. Pick up for Mr. Wolfe, he announced, trying to look past me. We don't do pickups, I told him. We do good manners. Who sent you? Miss Thibault's insurer, he said, and offered the envelope. I took it and didn't invite him in. The letter inside, on the same grand letterhead as Vale's receipt, requested immediate transfer of material physical evidence in the assured's interest, to avoid spoliage. The misspelling made my teeth smile. Tell your dispatcher the item is retained by counsel, I said, and tell your cap to fit your head next time. He considered making a retort and instead made distance. I locked the door and brought the letter to Wolfe. He tapped the wrong spoliage. Ignorance or haste. Either is serviceable. We were to be rattled. They're also counting on your temper. My temper is on a leash, he said. Saul? I dialed and patched him in. He had already photographed the handoff at Eglantine and sent the mailbox store address. Wolfe told him to leave the door closed. No confrontations, no alarms, just eyes. At 5:20, Claudia arrived with a folder that could have served as a flotation device. She handed me the board thread. Torme had circulated a draft resolution to relocate the gala and engage an external events firm to restore donor confidence. His sister-in-law's firm, she said, bleak. They're copying Madame's aide on every email. They'll copy a judge if they keep going, I said. Sit. Breathe. Wolfe listened to my courier recital and Claudia's board saga and shut his eyes halfway. This is not about a brooch, he said. It is about leverage purchased with theatre. Very well at 5:50, Saul called. Lafferty's coupe is back at Eglantine's dock. She and a man in a lab coat, prop or payroll, can't tell, are photographing something on white, large and folded. A tablecloth. Good, Wolfe said. Let them publish. At 6 sharp, the bell rang again. 3 impatient taps. I went to get Torme. He entered with a look that wanted to own the hour and found it already leased. Wolfe didn't move more than an eyelid. The napkin sat in the safe. The letter with spoliage sat on my desk. I shut the door. If they wanted a stage, we had one. Torme took the red chair like it owed him money. Wolfe let the silence stand until it grew posture. Then he said, "Your 15 minutes begin. You will listen." Torme opened his hands in a gesture I've seen in boardrooms and poker games. "I'm here for a plan." "You are here," Wolfe said, "because you are meddling in a narrative you did not write, with actors you cannot control. You met Miss Lafferty of the Eglantine at Rusterman's bar before dinner. After the disturbance, a man styling himself Jory Vale removed the tablecloth under spurious authority from a mailbox. This afternoon, a courier demanded material evidence from me and invoked spoliage. Miss Needham's napkin, his eyes moved toward the safe, is marked by Lamb and Bright, the Eglantine's vendor, not Rusterman's. Drouet's manager received an inquiry this morning about distinguishing their finish from a competitor's. Your risk mitigation coincides too neatly with the contrivance. Torme colored. You don't know what you're implying. I imply nothing, Wolfe said. I state that evidence has been staged. If you persist in treating Rustermans as negligent and in pressing a resolution that enriches your sister-in-law, you will expose the foundation to humiliation. Claudia had her folder in a death grip. Owen, if you're not part of this, stop letting yourself be used. If you are, I am not, he snapped. I want the gala intact and the headlines quiet. Good, Wolfe said. You will assist me. You will attend here tomorrow at 11 with Ms. Lafferty, Madame Thibault, Mr. Courter, Mr. Alvarez, and the sommelier. I will arrange an account for the press that buries this farce without burying you. If you refuse, I will communicate to your board that the removal of evidence and the rush to a conflicted vendor occurred under your zealous supervision. His phone chimed. He glanced, tried not to smile, and failed. A hospitality blog has posted photos of the contaminated cloth and quotes an independent analyst. This is already public. The PI board will have to act remarkably efficient analysis, Wolfe said dryly. Published before Rustermans is notified. You may stop grinning. Haste is a confession. He looked at me. Archie, call Mr. Cohen. He will archive the page and inform his editor that I will have a corrective statement tomorrow noon. Then call Mr. Courter. No comment, no apologies, no refunds. I made the calls. Lon asked for a smell test. I said the smell was starch and cheap theatre, and he chuckled like a man promised a headline that won't stick to him. Felix said if I asked him to apologize, he'd retire. I told him to keep his powder dry. Wolfe turned to Claudia. You will reply to your board. The Foundation has retained me to investigate alleged tampering with physical evidence pertinent to last night's incident, and will brief them at 11:30 tomorrow. Use those words. No adjectives, she typed. Her shoulders lowered a half-inch. Torme's thumb was busy under the table. Wolfe watched it like a cobra watches a mouse consider fitness. You will forward that post to Miss Lafferty, Wolfe said. Tell her you expect her presence, since her venue is implicated, and that her associate, Mr. Vale, will be questioned regarding chain of custody. Use the phrase, under counsel's supervision. Torme swallowed. You don't have counsel. I have competence, Wolfe said. It alarms the foolish. Archie, tomorrow we will require a Rusterman tablecloth, a lamb and bright napkin, a Drouet napkin, burgundy, soda water, and a saucer of the diameter of the ring Etienne described. Fritz will oblige with starch. I will demonstrate Torme stood. If this becomes a spectacle, it already is, Wolfe said. I propose to close the curtain. Saul called. They've pushed the blog link to donors from an Eglantine marketing account, he said. Lafferty and Vale are now at a wine bar on 10th, toasting their science. Let them drink, Wolfe said. Alcohol enlarges indiscretion. Torme pocketed his phone. 11, he said, half warning, half surrender. I'll bring them. Do, Wolfe said, and advise Madame Thibault that if she will not attend, I shall deliver my conclusions to her insurer and any prosecutor who cares to hear them. He left with his dignity tucked under his arm. Claudia stared at the door, then at Wolfe. You're sure you can do this with a saucer and a lecture? With a saucer, he said, and the truth. The truth spreads too, only not as neatly as a ring. After Torme left, Wolfe told me to fetch what the stage required. I made calls before Fritz could herd me to dinner. Drouet agreed to bike over a tablecloth from last night's batch and 2 napkins with their green tack. Lamb and Bright's clerk, expensive eyebrows, owed me a favor from an earlier smile. She promised a messenger with 2 of their Lupin Dot specials within the hour. Felix grudged me a saucer from the service set, wrapped like a relic. Etienne volunteered a bottle of Volnay 2010 to spare your palate from sacrilege, and sent soda water besides. Fritz promised starch and said if we wasted Burgundy, he would write to Volnay and apologize. At 8, I took a stroll to check the block. A grey coupe idled up the street, lights low. When the driver lifted a phone, Saul's voice arrived in my ear 5 seconds later. Vale, he said, parallel parked and pretending he invented patience. Let him watch the bricks, I said. If he stretches his legs, cough. He didn't. Back inside, the deliveries stacked up neatly. I labeled everything like we were opening a museum. Drouet napkin, lamb and bright napkin, saucer, tablecloth. Wolfe glanced once and closed his eyes. That means he was fitting snug pieces where other people see laundry. Before bed, Lon Cohen rang to say his editor would sit on the blog's breathless cloth analysis until noon tomorrow. If you're going to swat, he said, make it sting. I promised a welt. Claudia emailed confirmations. Lafferty accepted under protest, Vale with counsel, which meant his haircut, and Madame Thibault's aide wrote that Madame would attend time permitting. Torme forwarded me the invite like he'd thought of it himself. Morning put Wolfe in the plant rooms, which meant I owned setup. I laid the tablecloth over a folding table, set the saucer, poured a measured ounce of burgundy along the rim, and lifted. The ring sat perfect as a halo. On a cloth with the slightest slope, the wine crept and feathered naturally where gravity told it to, which meant Etienne's too perfect had teeth. I blotted with Drouet's napkin. It took the liquid and relaxed into its task. Soft, obedient. Then I tried lamb and brights. The finish resisted, the bead rolled, and the fibers didn't wick. Starch makes a napkin polite, not helpful. Fritz, grumbling, added a whisper of starch to a Drouet napkin, and I dabbed again. Now it smeared, a different crime. Wolfe came down, looked once, and nodded, which in this house is thunder. At 10:30, Saul reported Vale had acquired a second man who could have been a lawyer if lawyers wore shoes that scuffed so easily. "They're rehearsing excuses," Saul said. "The coop is clean. Yesterday's garment bag is gone." "Good," Wolfe said. "Let them arrive unencumbered." By 10:50, chairs were set. I parked the props where they'd be seen last. The napkin, the diva of our little opera, stayed in the safe until the overture. They came on time because ego hates to be kept waiting by a chair. Felix first, jaw tight, Lino, pale but steady. Etienne, amused because that's his heritage. Torme came with Lafferty, whose suit could have cut glass, and Vale, whose eyes kept checking my safe as if it had a window. Madame Thibault arrived at the dot of 11 with a chilled smile and a new brooch, emeralds this time, heavy enough to anchor a yacht. Her gloves were dove gray, the left showed a faint shimmer, like something had kissed it and dried too smooth. Her clutch bulged at one corner, not with a brooch, wrong shape, but with a rectangle that wanted to be a folded napkin. Wolfe didn't stand. He never does. He looked them over and made them feel noted. "Good morning," he said. "Sit. We will restore proportion." Wolfe let their chair squeaks settle. "Mr. Quarter," he said. The ring Felix kept it simple. Perfect circle. No run, no slope flow. "Mr. Alvarez." I dabbed with a bar towel, then fetched a fresh napkin. She took it from me. I didn't see it again. "Etienne." He tipped 2 fingers. "Natural spill makes spokes." This had none. "Thank you." Wolfe's eyes touched Vale. "You removed the tablecloth under authority from a rented mailbox. Your letter invoked spoliage. You cannot spell the statute you pretend to enforce." "Sit still." Vale reddened and sat still. "Miss Lafferty," Wolfe went on, "you met Mr. Torme before dinner. After the disturbance, you keyed Mr. Vale into the Eglantine's dock with a bag containing that cloth. Yesterday you distributed a blog post analyzing it. You are ambitious. It blinds you." He shifted an eyelid toward me. "Archie." I laid the folding table with Drouet's cloth. At Wolfe's nod, I set the saucer, brushed the rim with burgundy, lifted clean. The halo appeared, patient and even. I tipped the table a half-inch. The wine feathered along the slope, thinning to one side. "Unavoidable," Wolfe said. "Gravity attends no gala. Mr. Quarter?" Felix leaned in, nodded once. I took a second cloth scrap and splashed a natural knock. It spidered, messy and human. Lino breathed, the sound of a man who hasn't been believed for a day. "The blog's photograph," Wolfe said, "shows a uniform ring without feathering." It was stamped. He crooked a finger. I brought the napkins. "Drouet," I said, showing the green tack. "Lamb and bright," I said, showing the loop and dot. "Mr. Alvarez," Wolfe asked, "the napkin you brought. Soft?" "Yes." "Miss Lafferty, Lamb and Bright finishes some napkins for showroom effect with excessive starch. Observe." He inclined his head. I poured a measured drop on Drouet's sample. It wicked, left a dull blush. I poured the same on Lamb and Bright's. It beaded, rolled, and barely kissed the fiber. "Now," Wolfe said, "consider our exhibit." I fetched the plastic sleeve from the safe and set it where they could hunger for it. This is spotless. It bears Lamb and Bright's emblem, not Rusterman's wreath nor Drouet's tack. Miss Needham received it from Madame with a note about standards. Its cleanliness argues not care but composition. Madame's smile, said she, had never in her life been contradicted by furniture. Monsieur Wolfe, she murmured, you charm with props. You do not charm me. I do not intend to, he said. Your glove, on the other hand, interests me. He indicated the dove-grey left. The sheen is not leathers. It is a faint film. Starch leaves such a scurf when fingers handle a heavily finished linen. Mr. Goodwin? I crossed, palm up. May I? She hesitated, then slipped the glove off with a flourish that thought it was a dismissal. Up close, the heel bore a pale dust that lifted on my fingertip and turned slick with a drop of water. I held it up. Felix's nostrils flared. Fritz's kitchen has conditioned him like a pointer. Wolfe's voice stayed mild. There are 3 indispensable artifices in last night's theater: a stamped ring, a starched napkin that resists stain, and a narrative seeded before dawn with analysis from an independent. All 3 are present here. Their convergence is not fortuitous. Vale tried a smile. You don't have the brooch. I don't require it, Wolfe said. The brooch was never at hazard to strangers. It was either temporarily pocketed to amplify distress or already removed during your adjournment to the powder room. Reporting to police was conspicuously avoided. The value here is leverage. To damage Rustermans, to stampede a gala to the Eglantine, to justify an outsourcing. He let that sit with Torme until it burned. Torme swallowed. Lafferty stared at the ring on the cloth as if it might admit collaboration. Wolfe lifted a finger. We will now address custody. He looked at Vale. Your letterhead is a shelf. Your removal defeated any honest analysis. It achieved a photograph. If you speak, choose prudence. Madame opened her clutch to check something she didn't need to check. The corner bulge made a rectangle. Wolfe did not turn his head. Archie, he said, please retrieve the item Madame is carrying that does not belong in her clutch. I went to her with my hand out, polite as linen. Madame, if you please. She smiled like a chilly chandelier. I do not surrender my effects to clerks. You're safe, I said. I'm not an effect. I glanced at Wolfe. He didn't nod. He didn't have to. Madame, he said, if you resist, I will telephone Inspector Kramer and tell him you have brought concealed evidence to a discussion of a false insurance narrative. Your choice. That decided the etiquette. She took out the rectangle and handed it to me as if it weighed her down. Folded twice. White. I opened it enough for the corner to show the green tack and the Rusterman wreath. The linen had taken a pale blush where a ring would kiss, and 2 faint fans where someone blotched, exactly what Lino's hands would have made before she said, I'll manage. It smelled like burgundy and perfume, not laundry. Etienne let out a soft, ah. Lino's shoulders eased. Felix's jaw lost a pound. Wolfe's voice stayed gentle. You withheld the only napkin that would have settled the matter in Rusterman's favor, and sent Miss Needham a showroom piece from Lamb and Bright, starched to repel stain. You then had Mr. Vale arranged for the cloth to be removed, after which you or your confederates doctored the ring for a photograph that was distributed by Miss Lafferty's marketing apparatus. Meanwhile, Mr. Torme agitated to relocate the gala and to outsource operations to a relative. Your brooch, if ever truly at hazard, was secure in your possession long enough to avoid the inconvenience of police scrutiny. Vale tried to laugh. You can't? I can, Wolfe said. You removed evidence under false authority. You represented yourself as an agent of an insurer whose suite is a row of mailboxes. You participated in a publication that purports to be expert analysis while suppressing contrary material. If Madame files a claim, it will be denied for fraud. If she does not, the attempted manipulation remains Lafferty found her tongue. You're inventing motive. No, Wolfe said. I am apportioning it. You wanted Rustermans discredited and your venue ascendant. Mr. Tormey wanted his sister-in-law's contract. Madame wanted deference and a private ashtray. Each of you contributed a piece of futility, napkin, photograph, resolution. Together they form a clumsy engine. Tormey turned to Madame. Angeline, tell him he's wrong. She looked at him with a kind of pity reserved for men who arrive late to their own party. It was necessary to protect the foundation. Pfui, Wolfe said, softly enough to sting. You attempted to protect your primacy by brandishing scandal. You lack the industry to make it credible. She drew herself up. What do you want, Mr. Wolfe? A retraction, he said. Now, Miss Lafferty will instruct her blog and all downstream parrots to withdraw the analysis as provisional and in error, pending consultation with Rustermans. Mr. Vale will sign an affidavit that he removed the cloth at Madame's instruction and delivered it to the Eglantine without preserving chain of custody. Mr. Tormey will withdraw his resolution and inform his board that evidence tampering occurred outside Rusterman's control and that the foundation remains at its chosen venue. Madame will send Miss Needham a written apology for impugning her staff and will not file any claim. Or, he opened a palm, I will summon Inspector Kramer forthwith and deliver this Rusterman napkin, your glove residue, Mr. Vale's letterhead, and the record of your coordinated campaign to the district attorney. No one moved. You could hear the Volney thinking. Lino cleared his throat and stopped. Felix looked at the clock, and then at Madame with the blank mercy of a man who has met many patrons and forgiven few. Lafferty said, I'll need counsel. You have had counsel, Wolfe said. It was your ambition. Choose more reliable counsel now. Tormey had gone a color that isn't sold in neckties. If we do this, if we retract, does this end? Wolfe's eyelids dropped and rose. If you comply fully within 1 hour, I will say publicly that improprieties external to Rustermans confuse the matter and have been corrected. If you do not, I will see that your names accompany the word tampering wherever it is printed. Madame looked at the wreath on the napkin, at the blush that didn't fit her narrative. She folded her gloves slowly, buying seconds. You are impertinent, she said. I'm exact, Wolfe said. And I'm waiting. She turned to Lafferty. Do it. Vale opened his mouth. Lafferty said crisp, jury, and he closed it. Tormey exhaled an apology meant for himself. Wolfe leaned back as close as he gets to benevolent. Very good. We will reconvene in 1 hour to confirm your performance. Nobody thanked him. They filed out as if the room had put on weight. I locked the door, put the Rusterman napkin in the safe with its traitorous twin, and looked at Wolfe. He shut his eyes. Fritz, he called. The saucer is no longer required. Bring beer. Fritz brought the beer, and Wolfe treated it like punctuation. We sat with the clock. Claudia kept her chair and her breath behind her teeth. At 20 minutes, Lon called. The blog had pasted a mea culpa across its headline and pulled the photos. The editor would take Wolfe's noon statement and give it top rail. At 30, Saul reported Vale had visited a notary 2 blocks from the mailbox store. The lawyer with the scuffed shoes earned his keep by pointing at where to sign. At 40, an email hit from Tormey withdrawing his resolution and clarifying that the foundation had engaged me. He attached words that sounded like penance scrubbed with a PR brush. At 58, Madame's aide sent a PDF, apology to Miss Needham and Rustermans for an unfortunate misapprehension. It did not include the word sorry, but the watermark said Thibault. They came back at the hour, like people who don't love returning to the scene. Lafferty had color around the eyes that said she hadn't enjoyed capitulation. Vale had a sheet from the notary and the look of a man who'd swallowed a stapler. Tormey brought his jaw at half-mast. Madame arrived last, gloves on, emerald steady. Wolfe let them stand long enough to re-experience being smaller than a chair. You have complied? He asked. Lafferty offered printouts. The post is withdrawn. Social channels are corrected. Vale extended the affidavit. I scanned it. He acknowledged removing the cloth at Madame's instruction, delivering it to Eglantine, and failing to preserve chain of custody. Wolfe touched a finger to his lip. "Adequate," he said. "Madame?" She passed me the PDF, then looked at Claudia without blinking. "Miss Needham," she said, "I regret that my concerns compounded confusion. Your staff behaved with dignity. It was as near as she would come. Claudia took it like a weight that belonged on the other side of the scale." "And our board?" Wolfe asked Torme. "I've withdrawn the motion," he muttered. "We remain with Rustamans. I've recommended an internal review of procedures." "Excellent," Wolfe said. "Review your judgment first. As to the brooch, there will be no claim Madame's chin rose." "There will not." "Then we are finished," Wolfe said. He flicked a glance at Felix. "Mr. Courter, you will accept Madame's letter and Miss Needham's, and you will not gloat. Rustamans does not require victory laps." Felix nodded once, the kind of acknowledgement a professional gives another. Lafferty tugged her sleeve. "Are you going to keep that napkin?" she asked, eyeing the safe. "Yes," Wolfe said, "as a reminder that cleanliness without context is deceitful. You may inform your linen vendor that their emblem has acquired notoriety." Vale tried a last stand. "You can't stop people from talking." "No," Wolfe agreed. "I can give them something better to talk about." He dictated for Lon while I typed, "No theft established. Improprieties outside Rusterman's control corrected. Foundation retains Rusterman's. An independent inquiry by this office closed with confidence in the venue and staff. Balanced, dull, and fatal to gossip." They filed out. Torme paused at the door. "I thought," he said to Claudia, "I was protecting the gala." "You nearly did the opposite," she told him. "Try protecting the truth next time." When the door shut, Wolfe exhaled. The room expanded. Claudia sat back as if strings had been cut. "I can't thank you enough," she said, which was as true as anything said that day. "You can," Wolfe said. "You already have." He meant the check. "You will send copies of those letters to Mr. Brenner and to your board. After the gala, you will consider whether proximity to donors who abhor smoke more than scandal might be an institutional goal." She smiled, crooked. "I'll consider it." Fritz announced lunch as if absolution had a bell. We ate in the dining room. Cold pheasant, a salad that had its own ideas, and a glass of the Volnay Etienne had spared for us. Wolfe really did apologize to it before tasting. In the office after, he settled and closed his eyes halfway. "There is a vice worse than greed," he said. "It is the appetite for superiority dressed as stewardship. It feeds on the conditions that sustain it, deference and fear, and calls the feast virtue. I prefer actual feasts, you and me both," I said, "though I admit I've developed a taste for spotless napkins." "Pui," he said, opening one eye. "A useful abomination. Put it away, I locked the lamb and bright in the safe and left the Rusterman linen ready for return. The brownstone felt like it always does when order resumes. The air fit the walls again. Outside, a coupe turned the corner and didn't stop. Inside, Fritz asked if the saucer should be washed with the relics. Wolfe said yes. I wrote up the bill. Lon ran our statement at noon with enough starch to hold its shape, and donors apparently prefer starch when it carries Wolfe's name. By 2, the Foundation's inbox had traded outrage for relief, and Rusterman's reservation line sounded like election night. Eglantine's marketing posts evaporated with a puff about incomplete information. By 5, Saul reported that Miss Lafferty's profile read, "Seeking New Challenges," and Mr. Vale had cleared his mailbox, which took less time than folding a napkin. Wolfe had me courier Kramer, a tidy packet. Vale's affidavit, the bogus letterhead, and a note that no claim was filed and no complaint expected. I added a personal line. If he wanted to bust anyone for creative laundering, he could start with a marketing department. He called to grunt that if we were going to wave him off a storm, he preferred a forecast before lightning. Wolfe told him the storm had been manufactured clouds. Kramer said he disliked props. Wolfe said he did too, except when they told the truth. That was as close to a Valentine as those two get. I took the Rusterman napkin and Felix's saucer home that afternoon. Felix accepted them like a returning regiment. Etienne poured a two-finger thank you and surrendered only after I reminded him I was on company time. Lino shook my hand as if it might revoke the last 24 hours. It was never about you, I told him, but sometimes the point is to say it out loud. Claudia sent word that the board had voted to proceed at Rusterman's and to adopt a policy against removing material evidence from anywhere more serious than the coat check. She invited us to the gala. Wolfe instructed me to decline with gratitude and to request that the flowers avoid any variety with pollen. She said she would try, which is all any mortal can promise Wolfe. At 6, with the day returned to its proper size, Fritz put dinner on like a treaty. Pike quenelles in cream, asparagus that stood straight on its own spine, and a bottle that made Etienne's earlier generosity look like a flyer. Wolfe applied himself without haste. The safe held 2 napkins, one that had lied with a straight face, one that had told the truth with a blush. If there's a metaphor that doesn't hit you with a hammer, that's it. When we were back in the office and his second beer was exactly where it wanted to be, Wolfe leaned back and set his fingertips together. There is a species of deceit that flatters itself as guardianship, he said. It arranges a scene to prove that it was right all along. Its instruments are always the same, a spotless emblem, a credentialed voice, and a frightened audience. It calls its appetite a duty and expects the applause. Today it didn't get a standing ovation, I said. It will again, he said. The world abounds in spectators who prefer polish to substance. We are obliged, now and then, to scoff it. He closed his eyes. The orchids upstairs would be waiting. They never ask for retractions. I logged the case, filed the receipts, and wrote a note to send a basket to Drouet with thanks. If I'd added a card to Madame, it would have read, "Your emeralds were beautiful, and your theatre was not." Before I shut the lights, Wolfe spoke without opening his eyes. "Archie. Present. Burn the lamb and bright napkin when Miss Needham confirms the gala proceeds without incident. I will not keep a lie merely because it is well laundered. Funeral pyre in the backyard. Fritz will want a permit. In the kitchen stove will suffice. Truth cooks, deceit only scorches. Then I'll keep the Rusterman one, I said. It matches my tastes. Honest, slightly stained, and not too stiff. He made a noise that for him was a laugh. The brownstone settled back on its foundations. Outside, the city dinged and sulked and schemed. Inside, Fritz laid out the clean linens for breakfast. I shut the safe, checked the bolts, and figured that if tomorrow brought more polish than substance, we had sauces enough.